They fled the plague by lantern light. Merchants, children, a weary priest, wagons creaking away from a dying city. At the roadside bend, a lone figure in a beaked mask stepped from the fog and promised, very softly, "Follow my methods, and none of you will die tonight." You're watching The Macabre Physician. Subscribe for weekly historical horror. Introduction: Northern Italy, 1348. Behind them, the city rots under blackened bells. Ahead, the road is only rumor and dust. A caravan forms out of shared fear. 2 merchant wagons loaded with cloth and grain, a family with 2 children and 1 coughing father, a young scribe guarding a box of letters, a weary priest clutching a relic he no longer fully trusts. They travel by dusk and lamp glow, mouths covered with cloth soaked in vinegar, eyes fixed anywhere but on the wagons that fall behind. Word spreads of patrols turning travelers back, of villages burning strangers at their borders, of the plague riding in on wheels and hooves. To them, distance itself has become a cure, if they can stay ahead of the death inside the walls. Night finds them on a stretch of empty road flanked by low trees and shallow fog. Horses snort at something the lanterns have not named. Then he appears at the edge of the light. Tall, oiled cloak, wide-brimmed hat, leather beak mask pitted and greened as if it had seen too many fires. In his hand, a brass censer breathes a thin stream of smoke. At his belt, a black book taps softly against his side with each step. "I have left 3 cities standing," he says, voice low, measured. "I know how to keep the pest from choosing you, but you must follow my precautions exactly. Light low, camps separated. The weakest under my direct care. No one breaks the circle. No one questions the intervals. They are tired enough to believe anything that sounds like a plan. The merchants eye their goods. The father hears a chance for his children. The priest hears ritual and exhale of relief. The caravan leader agrees. One night under the doctor's method, then on toward cleaner air. He walks among them as if already appointed. Tags scraps of cloth at wrists for observation, notes names in his ledger with careful strokes, then rewrites each as initials to protect the innocent. He chooses a tent at the center of the wagon circle for the preventive treatment, for the old, the frail, the coughing, and any child who shared their blanket. The priest blesses the arrangement. The doctor lowers the lamps. The smoke thickens, and as the road disappears into darkness beyond the last wheel, the caravan does not see that what they have invited into their circle is not safety from the plague. It is the plague that walks. He inspected them like a man counting coins before a purchase. At the first wagon, he touched the child's brow with 2 gloved fingers and declared, "Watchful." At the second, he took the coughing father's wrist and closed his book around the pulse. Monitored. The priest he thanked for cooperation, his relic briefly reflected in the beak's dull leather. Each judgment entered the ledger with a clean stroke. "Those most at risk must sleep nearest the protection," he said. "The healthy form the outer ring. We do not let the plague choose its own order." He arranged them into a diagram the caravan mistook for wisdom. Wagons were drawn into a tight circle. The central tent, his tent, was raised with its flap facing no one. Around it he ordered 3 fires quenched and 2 left dim. "So the smoke runs where I tell it." The selected vulnerable, elderly merchant, coughing father, the priest's limping altar boy, a pale seamstress, 1 child who had shivered at dusk, were invited inside for prevention. He tied strips of cloth around their wrists, each marked with a small ink sign. Names he repeated in full, gentle as blessings. In the ledger, they became brisk initials. "To keep panic from spreading," he told the mother lingering at the flap. "We treat people. We record only symbols." He gave the outer circle instructions that sounded like salvation. No approaching the central tent, no bright flames, no loud prayers, no wandering beyond the wagons. "The pest rides drafts and voices," he warned. "My methods fail if you break them." The caravan leader nodded, grateful to trade ignorance for rules. The priest whispered that obedience was also faith. Mothers hushed their children. The young scribe watched the beaked mask move through the lamplight and for a heartbeat wondered why a savior needed to dim the world so thoroughly. Then the doctor lit his censer fully. Resinous smoke climbed and curled, carrying a smell that did not belong to any church they knew. He vanished into the central tent with the chosen few. The flap fell closed, like a final word. Around the circle, the remaining travelers lay down with their fears neatly folded into the rules he'd given them. Above the low fog, the road waited. Inside the tent, his pen began to scratch. Inside the central tent, the air changed its mind. He lowered the lamp until it was more memory than flame. Shadows climbed the canvas. Smoke from the censer thickened into slow, obedient spirals. The chosen sat on rolled blankets, too tired to stand, too trusting to run. He moved among them with a confessor's patience. "You have done the brave thing," he told the coughing father, tying the cloth tag tighter on his wrist. "You will show the others how discipline defeats infection." He measured pulses with 2 fingers and a private rhythm. He lifted eyelids, checked tongues, watched how fear sat in each throat. His black book lay open on a crate, left column for initials, right for times. Little verbs marching neatly between. Inhaled, held, calmed. "For the smoke to guard you," he said, "you must breathe when I say." They nodded, because nodding cost less courage than doubt. He demonstrated, censer swings left, inhale, returns, exhale, pause, stillness. The altar boy tried first, turning obedience into a game. The seamstress followed, desperate to believe stillness might be health. The elderly merchant closed his eyes and surrendered. Trust was lighter than the bales he used to lift. Each compliant breath earned a mark in the ledger. Where full names had once been, only initials now behaved. When the pale child glanced at the lamplit gap under the canvas, he shifted his cloak to block it. "Outside is where the pest walks," he murmured. "Here is control." Beyond the tent, the caravan fires burned low in the pattern he'd ordered, too far to see clearly, close enough to hear when someone coughed or turned in their sleep. A mother approached the flap once. He met her silhouette with his own. "Breaking the circle endangers all," he said gently, hand resting on the rope as if on her shoulder. "He is responding well." Behind him, the child sat very still, counting the swings. She backed away, ashamed of doubting. He returned to his crate. The censor's chain kept perfect time. The column of initials lengthened. At the bottom of the page he drew a small box, the same mark he always reserved for designs that pleased him. "Second interval," he whispered, not to them, but to the road that had brought them. The smoke, well-trained, did not disagree. By the third swing of the censer, the tent had forgotten it was canvas. He rearranged them with practiced hands. The coughing father nearest the brazier, the altar boy opposite the flap, the seamstress and merchant along the sides, the child in reach of his shadow. "So the smoke shares itself fairly," he explained, as if equality were comfort. He changed the draft by drops no one else could see. One mixture bit the tongue, another blurred the edge of fear, a third made limbs feel politely distant. He watched which breaths stuttered, which eyelids hesitated, which hands gripped the cloth tags a moment too long. On the page, their obedience became sequence. AM. Inhaled on command. AM. Held beyond cough. AM. Quiet, compliant little words, smooth as stones. When the altar boy swayed, he steadied him with 2 fingers. "Good," he said. "You trust the method." When the seamstress tried to speak, he gave her a task instead. "Count the curls of smoke. Press your thumb to this mark. Listen for nothing." Her questions dissolved dutifully. Outside, the caravan settled into the posture of people who have hired a miracle. The priest murmured gratitude for this providential doctor. A merchant on watch saw the central tent's shadow move and chose to call it ritual. He pinched the lamp lower until the world narrowed to his schedule: chain, pulse, pen. At the flap, he loosened a tie, just enough for the smoke to slip outward in a thin ribbon. A barrier, he would call it, if asked, a curtain that walked. The child's head dipped. He wrote a new line. "C. Interval complete." At the bottom of the page, beside his small box, he drew a thin arrow that pointed not to the road ahead, nor back to the buried city, but outward, to elsewhere. "Third interval," he said, and the tent, having been taught what intervals meant, held its breath on cue. The night outside learned to imitate the tent. He stepped out once, just once, to address the outer ring. Lantern light carved his beaked silhouette against the wagons. The censer glowed faintly like an obedient coal. "No one approaches the central tent now," he announced softly. "The ritual is at its most delicate. Any intrusion could doom us all." Tired faces nodded. Fear loves instructions. He made a small performance of scattering smoke along the circle, brushing it over wagon wheels, pallet edges, the priest's bowed head. "Protection," he called it. The priest repeated the word, giving it church weight. "Who has coughed since sundown?" the doctor asked. A woman raised her hand. A youth admitted to a chill. He marked their wrists with fresh cloth. "You will join the preventive watch inside," he said. The phrase sounded like promotion. Behind him, the flap of the central tent did not quite move. One by one, under his guidance, the fires were smothered to embers. Shadows gained authority. The caravan leader took the last full lamp and set it where the doctor pointed, far enough to throw shape without revealing detail. "Sleep," the physician told them. "Trust the order we've made together." Sleep didn't come, but stillness did. Wagon boards stopped creaking. Prayers turned inward. The only sound was the soft tick of the censer chain and, occasionally, canvas breathing. When a mother half rose, thinking she'd heard her child call, the priest laid a hand on her arm. "The ritual," he whispered. "Don't break it." She lay back down with her terror pinned neatly under obedience. Near the darkest edge of the circle, a youth on watch thought he saw two shapes pass between wagons, one tall and cloaked, one smaller and shuffling. He opened his mouth, then heard the word delicate echoing in his head like a threat, and decided he had seen smoke. Inside the tent, the ledger turned another page. Outside, the caravan arranged itself into silence so perfect it almost sounded like survival. Dawn came honest and slow, spilling gray over the road, washing the trees, touching the wagon rims. It did not bother to warm the central tent. The first to rise was the young scribe. He called out softly to the others, then louder. No answer from the protected. The priest, throat dry, crossed himself and approached the tent flap with a courage that arrived late. "Doctor?" he called. "Is the ritual complete?" The flap hung partially open, as if someone had left in no particular hurry. Inside, the scene was arranged with unsettling care. Blankets smoothed, bowls upturned, brazier cooled, tags of cloth in a small, ordered pile. No bodies, no struggle, no packs missing. Just the weightless certainty of a place that had finished a task. On the crate, the black book lay open. Left column, initials they recognized. Right column, times they had not heard. Between them, inhaled, held, calmed, ceased. At the bottom, his familiar boxed mark, and the arrow, pointing outward, away from the circle, toward the blank of the road. The coughing father's wife clutched the pile of tags. "Where is he?" The priest searched the earth for drag marks, the wagons for signs of theft. There were none. The horses were tied, restless but unharmed, the goods untouched. A youth ran to the edge of camp. "The stranger's gone," he shouted. "No tracks but ours." The caravan leader stared at the ledger, reading every line except the one that mattered, that they had invited organization, not salvation. "We were not attacked," someone said. "We would have heard." "We heard what he wanted us to hear," the priest answered quietly. Slowly, the realization spread. Their dead, or something near to dead, had been taken without witness, turned from names into initials, from faces into intervals. By noon, they had burned the tent, but not the book. No one could agree whether destroying it would be justice or another obedience to his design. When they finally moved on, they left it closed on a stone, a warning for travelers who could still read. Miles ahead, A solitary figure walked the road with a sensor at his side and a fresh page waiting beneath his glove. He would find another group fleeing another infected city, another circle eager for rules that sound like rescue. He had promised the caravan protection from the plague. In the end, the plague had ridden with them all night. If this tale of the road unsettled you, like the video and subscribe to the Macabre Physician for more historical horror.